We're gonna bring them in.
Hello.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Appreciate you for doing this.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited we'll all hop on together. I guess we're
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Go Rome, host and the producer of the worldwide podcast, The Rome Show, powered by CT's Update Media. And today is a mini online podcast festival. I'm gonna have 3 other podcasters talk, and we're gonna bring them in.
Hello.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Appreciate you for doing this.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited we'll all hop on together. I guess we're waiting for a couple more people.
Yeah, 2 more people.
Amazing. How's your day going? Good?
It's going good. It's real hot. How's yours going?
It's good. It's good. I'm just coming back from Podfest and I'm just catching all back up and all the things.
Yeah, a lot of work to catch up on.
Oh, yeah. But it's all good. It's all good stuff. So can't complain there.
Right.
You want to ask everyone who's joining right now, maybe one thing that you're hoping to gain from this, a question maybe that you have that we can answer?
Yeah,
Hi,
anybody
Meg. Uh,
anybody has any questions, write them in the comments.
yes, drop them in. There's always a lag on here, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's see.
There we go.
Hi,
Hey,
Hi.
what's up?
nice to see you guys.
Nice to meet you. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Nice to meet you. It's really nice to see. I've been seeing all of the promotional stuff and I noted you. I was like, I want to meet her.
Bye. I felt the same way. I love it.
Appreciate you for taking time out doing this.
No, thank you for inviting us. It's so nice to connect with other people doing similar things.
It really is. It really, really is. I think that's one thing. I was just saying, like, I just was coming back from Podfest this weekend, and I think one of the best things that I've realized is how important it is to be in a space with like-minded people. Especially, I don't know if you're like me, but like I work from home all the time, and I'm by myself all the time, and so it's hard to feel that expansiveness and like that creativity, you know, flow when you're just kind of always in your day to day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the most interesting part of podcasting is like you're kind of speaking to the emptiness of your home and you're hoping that there are people on the other end listening and you know that there are because you're looking at numbers or you're seeing people interact online, but there is like a loneliness component to it, so it's nice to connect with other people in real time.
I love that. I actually love that you said that because that's one thing that I went into like Podfest with that intention. I was like, okay, if I'm like meant to continue, I was like, okay, I'm either going to leave here with the clarity of continuing my show or I'm going to leave here with the clarity of folding my show. That's kind of where I was at. Like, I was like, whatever. And so anyway, so I was talking to a bunch of people and mentioning like, what my show name is and like all that kind of stuff. People were checking it out and they were like, oh, wow, like that actually sounds really cool. And I was like, okay, like, I guess we're just going to keep going then. That sounds good.
Yeah, and then it evolves over time too. Like your original idea takes on a life of its own, and as you start to hear from the people that are listening and hear from other podcasters, you start to sort of see that it finds its own way that's maybe different than what you thought it would be like.
Oh, you're so right. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
So, how long have you been podcasting?
You go first.
Since I want to say since October of last year.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know how long that's been, but it's getting there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so great. And you know what I think too, like it's just great to hear that, because it's hard to get past like that episode, 3 episode, 4 episode sort of threshold. Like typically, like, not typically, but a lot of the times people will launch something not realizing that, how much work it actually takes. And so to like be consistent with that every single week, like, it's such a big deal. And I don't think that people actually realize how much work goes into the back end of producing a podcast until you start producing a podcast.
It's
Right. A lot of work.
It's a lot more work than you think it is. And what's interesting too is, like, as you get better at it, you start adding additional steps to your process, right? Because you realize, like, oh, like if I don't do this, then this doesn't happen. So for instance, in the beginning, when I would release something, I would just tag the person. Now I realize that interviewing someone, that I have to send them a formal email with all of the links and the information. So as you get better at it and you realize what works and what doesn't, your process might be more efficient, but it's sometimes longer. You editing, for example, so you can do like cool tricks with volume and all of this, adding music. And the more you do it, the more work it really becomes. And you don't realize how much of your time is invested in something. Of course, it's a beautiful thing. It's a passion project, but the reality is that it is work.
100%. Oh, you like hit the nail on the head. It's so true. It's like, I was actually talking to someone about this morning, like having all of like the systems in place to like support you and like support that growth. And like, you'd have like a system for like booking guests, having a system for launching, having a system for editing your episodes, having a system for going live, like all of that stuff is all individual steps and things that we can be doing. So yeah, what do you both think about that?
Yeah, you definitely got to make like your own blueprint, have like a system.
Yeah.
Definitely. And to stay engaged, right? Because it's one thing to engage an audience member. It's a whole nother thing to keep them engaged. And how do you create content that aligns with what people want? And how do you create content that is adjacent to your podcast, right? So for instance, all of the different ways that people are in contact with their audience, that's all individual worlds that you have to learn. Like if you're on TikTok, or the way that Instagram works, or the way people like you to create newsletters and things like that. Those are all individual skill sets that you now become familiar with and integrate into your week. It's a whole thing.
Exactly.
The whole job.
Yeah, it literally is. No, it's so true. And I think too, like, I think one of the biggest things is like, it allows you this specific type of like creativity in all of those different areas, but also like, just because all of those tasks exist, it honestly doesn't mean that you have to do all of them, right? Like some people are better served just staying in their zone of genius, like in what they enjoy doing. So like, I know for myself, like one of my favorite parts of the whole entire process, I like the strategy side behind it, but I love the editing. I don't know what's the matter with me, because most people don't enjoy that part, but I love it. I would rather sit on a Tuesday night and edit a podcast or two than watch a Netflix show. I think it's a little weird, but that's okay.
Yeah, there are parts of it that you fall in love with, right? Like for me, I really like the actual interview part. Like the part where there are moments during the conversation where I'm thinking, oh my God, this is like the best conversation I've ever had, like in my life. And it's being recorded. I can go back and listen to it again, and someone else can listen to it and comment and become part of the conversation. Like how many times have you gone to a party or a bar or wherever you're going, and you meet somebody interesting and you have these really cool conversations that you want to tell people about, and we get to do that like recorded, and something that other people get to be a part of later. That's like an incredible thing to do, That also requires preparation. You have to like research the person and have questions ready. And, a lot of these are free flowing, but there is a lot of work that goes in on the back end to make it consistent and flowing and editing all of that.
Exactly. Right. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I like the interviewing part, and I love editing too.
Do you?
Yeah.
I love it. What do you edit? What do you use to edit? What software?
iMovie or InShot.
Oh, okay. Cool. I use Descript.
What do you use?
Descript.
Never heard of that one. How about you?
Cool.
I use GarageBand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Simple. I like it. I started using Descript because I do a lot of like video podcasts, not just for myself, but for my clients as well. And I found it was the easiest way because like the video in all of these shows is not like the main focus. It's just like, they'll have the video turned on and then they'll record it with the video. And so we might as well take that video and put it onto YouTube and use it up for clips and stuff like that, right? So I started using Descript because you can take the video recording and you just drop it into the software and it pulls the transcript for you. You can pull clips right out of it automatically, so you're not having to like go back and like every single time like finding that one spot that you really wanted to clip out and make into like a videogram or something like that. But you can do it with audio too. It's meant for both. So I just found, like, talking about systems and processes, like I found that was one of the biggest tools that helped my process along so much. And it's such a time saver because like now instead of having to I don't know, do all of these extra steps, I can do 3 main things at one time.
Right. What do you use like to edit like your cover art?
Wow.
Canva.
Canva. Okay.
Yeah. How about you?
PixArt.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of that one. Just write it down. See,
Yeah.
we learn new all the time.
How about you?
Canva too. I'm using Wave to create my video clips, to like turn the audio into like a movie clip that people can watch. These tools are incredible. I use Squadcast for the actual interview.
Yeah.
I heard of that.
Yeah.
Which I think is super helpful.
That's so helpful. I use Riverside FM for the actual interview. I actually just started using it. For a long time, I was using OBS Studio, but it wasn't like working properly with my computer and it just kept messing up the audio and all kinds of things. I was definitely doing something wrong. But yeah, and so it's been really good. But I use Headliner to create the clips. It's similar to Wave.
Okay, that's great. I love all these resources. I feel like we need to provide them after. Yeah, let's talk about the things we don't like to do. I think that's interesting to talk about. I can tell you guys like that for me, the hardest part of this is like the social media part. Like creating content for Instagram is tough.
Yeah.
In particular, Reels. Like Reels are, they're very good for the algorithm. Lots of people enjoy watching them. There's a lot there. And I've been informed by many people that they'd like to see more Reels from me. Mm-hmm. And creating them is I don't know why it's so tough for me, but I feel nervous when I create them, or I'm not quite sure if they make sense for me in my content, because I feel like my content tends to be more on the serious side. So how do I create like Reels that are still in the same vein as some of the content that I'm creating?
100%. That's such a good question, I think. And I think, one of the things when like new technology, it's like, yes, like we want to do it. You want to make sure like you're keeping up with like the trends and all of that. But it's hard too though, right? Because it's about implementing like a whole new piece to your strategy, which isn't necessarily an easy thing to just shift into, right? And it's like, it's almost like you master one thing and then they come out with another thing and it's like, okay, well, let me learn this all over again. But what I found that might be an easier thing for you to do, and I found this for myself, is, if I'm going to go in and clip like a written quote, for example, not even clip, like I'll just copy and paste like a quote from my episode, you can actually take that and you can turn that into a reel. And you just, upload it to your thing and then you just add some music to it and it ends up, like you see all those other reels on there that are like quotes and stuff like that. But it's such a simple way to get your content across in a different way. It might be easier because if your content is more serious in nature, like mine is too, it's not like lifestyle, you know what I mean? And if it's not lifestyle, it makes it a little bit more difficult to find that like relatability piece. But I've liked using that strategy.
I like that. I like that strategy. It's kind of like taking something you're already creating and then just creating different versions of it for people to enjoy. I think one thing that has been, at least for me, and the way that I've approached podcasting, is I'm really looking at it as an art form. I'm looking at it as a way of expressing yourself, playing with the questions, playing with the format, trying to get the interviewer to be more honest or to be comfortable being themselves, right? There's a lot that goes into it as sort of like a communication art form that's being archived, that people, evergreen content that people can get something from. So how do I do that and make sure I'm not turning it into work, right? I don't want it to feel the way that like a 9-to-5 would feel, or the way that something that's extremely rigid or extremely structured feels, because I still want to play, I still want to explore, and I want to make the people that are being part of it and joining in, both listening and as interviewees, to also feel comfortable playing and exploring and like topics and things like that. And so there's this balance between creating structure and having a sort of like a business plan about how this works, while also like maintaining the integrity of this like indie podcasting format that has so much potential.
Exactly. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good one. One thing I don't like is when I don't have stuff to do, like when I don't have like interviews booked up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I have found really helpful for that is Facebook groups.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook groups, and you're just honest with people, like, hey, I have this show, I'm really excited to talk to people that are interested in X and Y. People share it with each other, and before you know it, you have a ton of guests that are on the show. And it's tough because I've had to turn people away sometimes because I'm overbooked. Like there was one week where I had 8 people in one week, and for me with my schedule, it was so difficult, and I realized that I wasn't giving my full self because I was so tired. And it made me realize, like, again, like this isn't work, right? This is play. And I need to be in the mind state to give of myself, which is part of the fun and the joy and the art form of this, is that I am my most purest self in that moment in the interview. And I can't do that if I'm exhausted. So I sort of started like limiting some of the amount of interviews that I was doing week by week, because you're so used to like productivity in sort of the culture that you're in, that you have to sort of learn to slow down a little bit with podcasting.
Totally. That's such a good point. I remember when I first started, I used to I did the same. Like I would always do like all these different interviews, and every single week I was interviewing like 3, 4, 5, 6 people. And then, you hit burnout, you know what I mean? Like there's no, like, I mean, I love to have conversations and I love to talk to people, but that's a lot of space to hold for like other people's thoughts and all of that kind of stuff. Right. So I started, what's it called? I started sort of batching it by month. Hello. I started batching it by month, and every single month, I'll take like 3 months of the year. And then, so let's say like, the last 3 months, and I'll do a bunch of interviews, and I'll do like, 2 or 3 a week max. And then I'll give myself a break and I'll be off for like a couple months, and then I'll pick back up. So usually I do it in like the spring and the fall. I'll do like a bunch of episodes and then have them sort of like banked, and then get them all edited and in advance and all that kind of stuff, and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah.
Definitely gotta take a break.
Yeah.
There's also this really cool element about resting, that is something that I'm learning, obviously, again, as a person, like part of this culture of go, 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 that there is so much merit to taking a break, because when you bank episodes and then you go back and edit them, you can see your growth. Like you literally watch yourself growing in the art form, right? Like you're watching, like, in 4 months ago, let's say if I'm editing an episode that was recorded 4 months ago, I could hear how maybe I missed certain cues or opportunities for conversation, or how I like didn't say something that was more, I could have said something more authentic in that moment, but I held back, or something there that you can kind of analyze how you are being yourself and your genuine self in these interviews. And I think that's really interesting, because it kind of helps inform how you move forward, where if you're doing it week by week, it's harder to see that evolution.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. That's so key too. I think that that's such an important piece to it also, is like sort of letting yourself, for a long time, I never would listen back to any of the episodes that I did. Like, I mean, I would when I was like editing it, but I wouldn't really like listen back, you know, for anything more than that, I guess. And um, I honestly still sometimes I think about, I'm like, should I go back and like re-record episode 1? Because it was like it was a long time ago. It was back in 2018. And so like things have changed since then. But then I'm like, but then you lose like the authenticity of that very first episode, right? And then people get to see your progression and like be on that journey with you, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Do you guys promote like your old episodes or no?
Yeah, I do. Do you?
I haven't started,
Sometimes.
but I think I want to.
I try and do it like once a week. I'll throw in like a past episode from like 2 years ago or whatever and just like highlight that conversation, because like for 2 reasons, right? So the first reason is like obviously to drive like new listeners to that episode who may not have been around for that time, but also you like get to reconnect with the guest on that podcast too. And, you know, I've had people reach out and be like, oh, like that's so nice. Like it was such a fun conversation. Like, you know, and it's nice to reconnect with people in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think of myself as like because I'm also like an avid podcast listener. I really love the art form. And so I'm kind of keeping people and podcasts that I like to listen to. And you're right. Like sometimes I'll go back to an earlier episode just to see what that was like or what the podcaster was like at that time. And you can see like a drastic difference. And I kind of like that. I like seeing like the first episode they ever made. And fast forward, 5 years later, how much more comfortable they sound and how much more authentic and real they sound, or how much more structured the episodes are, whatever it is that the change has been, I think is fascinating. And as an audience member, you feel so connected to podcasters. Like they feel like people that you're sort of rooting for them, right? Or you're excited to know more about who they were even years ago.
Exactly.
Right. And you can learn so much from them too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's such
a I like what you said about connecting with the previous guests, because I think there's so much to that. For my podcast, for example, I'm speaking to like creatives and artists and visionaries and people who are creating, right? And when I do touch base with them again, when the release date happens, they've already moved on to creating other like incredible things, or they're having new events, or something new is happening. And it is worthwhile, I think, for the audience that maybe also feels connected to that person.
Yeah.
To content around like, where are they now?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, because I feel like that would be really cool. I would like that.
Yeah, I love that idea. One of my clients, when she does her podcast is called I Just Blank Now What, and I'll throw it in there so you guys can go check it out. But she interviews people about like the hard things that they've gone through in their lives. One thing she always asks at the end, which I love, is now what? Like, now what? What are you going to do next? Like, how are you going to, what's the next thing? Like, what's the next layer or elevation or like, expansion? Like, what's that next thing? And I love that, because I think it gives people like, even when you're listening, if you're listening in like July and then, I don't know, it goes out in whenever, like, it just gives you like a different opportunity to like see how that person has grown in all that time and like what they learn and how they're going to take that and apply that to like their future. I think it's so cool. My podcast is personal development. So like anything personal development, I like just like, okay, sounds good.
That's dope.
Yeah. Thanks.
So how was like the experience being at the PodFest in Orlando?
Oh my God, it was the best experience of my life. Like, it was so amazing. I met so many incredible people, and everyone is just so great at what they do. And it was podcasters, but it was also like, different podcasting companies. It was industry leaders, and it was people just getting started. Like, it was all kinds of people, and it was just amazing. Like, there was space to collaborate and to create, and then there was also space to brainstorm and like think about what you want to do next. And I actually got to do next, and I actually got to see one of my clients there, which was amazing. And we've been working together since like early 2020. I thought maybe 2019. I can't remember. 2020. I think it was 2020. And we just got to hang out all weekend and, talk about like the next step of her to do next. And I actually got to see one of my clients there, which was amazing. And we've been working together since like early 2020. I thought maybe 2019. I can't remember. 2020. I think it was 2020. And we just got to hang out all weekend and, talk about like the next step of her show. And like, just all the people that I met, they add such a layer of depth and like complexity into your life and getting to meet new people. Oh, it was awesome. I loved it. I can't wait to go back next year. I hope to see you there.
Yeah, definitely gotta go.
Yeah. I go to that. I think there's something to it. Like when you start podcasting, you're really just thinking about your mission, and then you start thinking about the audience, the people that you're interviewing. But there is this whole community, this entire network of people that are doing this that is also kind of like a built-in group that you now belong to. And I think I haven't done such a great job of doing that, of like connecting. Like this is one of my first experiences doing this. And I think we need to do more of that because there's so much to learn from each other and there's so much to share.
Exactly. And I think too, when you think you've got it all figured out, that's when you need to like go back to the drawing board and like realize like there are other things, and not even in a way of like, there's always opportunity to like make something better. And it's not that what it is right now isn't amazing, but the more you allow yourself to learn and grow in whatever it is in life, in whatever capacity, you really get to like take that through and like for the next thing that you do, so I don't know, I don't even know if that made sense, if that was proper English, but it's a good way to sort of like evaluate where you're at, where you want to go, and like what do you want to do next, and how do you want to do that, and how can you make what you have even more incredible for your listeners. And I don't want to say better, because I think that things are amazing in how they are when they're created and brought to life. Like, if I think about my own podcast, like when I launched it all those years ago, there's like 1,000,005 things that I would have done differently, right? Of course there are. But now I'm just gearing up to launch a new show in the fall, and there are 1,000,005 things that I can't wait to do differently this time. So, it's exciting, right? Like, it's so exciting.
Yeah. So when you launch other shows, is that under your same podcast, or you have like different podcasts?
Different podcasts. So I have a podcast production company, and we help different entrepreneurs launch and grow and monetize their podcasts. But it's in all kinds of spaces. Like they're in either like health and wellness, parenting, marketing, small business, like all kinds of spaces. And so it's both. So I get to do mine, and then I get to do like for my clients as well. And I think the best part about that is getting to learn so much from their conversations. Like, just there's so much to learn. And I don't think if I did it, I don't think that I would listen to as many podcasts as I did. Every single week I'm listening to like hundreds of hours of content. Like, it's amazing.
Wow, that's incredible.
That's a little bit dramatic. It's not hundreds, but but still, it's a lot.
That's really great. I'd love to learn more about that, about how podcast production companies work.
They're cool. We can talk. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So everyone runs their podcast production business so different. With mine, it's really full service, because the people that I tend to work with just don't want to do any part of the process other than hit record. So they'll hit record, and then they'll send over their file. And then I have a team. So I have a team of 4 editors, and a team of, 4 editors, 2 audio, 2 video, and then 1 content creator who's like my right hand. She's amazing. Her name is Sam. And she helps do all of like the content for my clients so that I can focus on the strategy and some of the editing and stuff like that. Some of my clients' episodes are edited by my team, but I always make sure to like review everything before it goes out, obviously, or like before it goes back to the client, I should say. But that's pretty much it. So it really is like full service. It's everything that you could want for your podcast, but also everything is customized to what you need, Wow.
That's really
Yeah, that's dope. How did you set that up, like a full team like that?
It honestly was terrifying, because at the beginning I had such a hard time like letting people take control of things. I think I have control issues, but that's okay. I had a really hard time of like, giving things off to other people. And, so my right hand was like the first hire that I made. And, it's like really about like leaning into like yourself and like trusting yourself that that you're making the right decision. And also like I'm a firm believer that like the more that we allow ourselves to grow and expand, then you can like there's only so much you can do as one person, right? And so it grew very like I would say at the right pace. Like, and it was hard to find great editors. It's not just about putting a file in and cutting out some ums, right? It's really about trying to tell a story with the conversation that you're having. You got to make sure you're cutting out the right parts or the wrong parts. If you're not, even if you are cutting things out, and if you're not, how do you like clean that up and like make it sound really good? So it was learning to like balance all of the different pieces and knowing that I didn't have to do everything. Like I don't always have to do everything in order for my business to be successful. And it's really about like allowing people to shine in their own respective space, right? Like they're good too. They're good at what they do also. So right. I don't know if that.
Yeah. And I feel that, because there is a barrier to entry here for podcasting, right? And the barrier to entry a lot of times is tech skills. Or just like the knowledge around how to do some of these things, et cetera. But there's so many people out there who I feel like could benefit from being part of the podcasting space, not just for their business, but just like in general, us archiving people's stories and their experiences, their opinions. It can't just be opinions from the same demographic, right? From the same grouping of people. Like we need to be able to provide like more equity. And I feel like providing a service like this that's full service can allow somebody who maybe doesn't have time or access or tech skills to come in to the space and feel comfortable in the space.
Exactly. Oh, you're so right. Tech skills is like the number one thing that people come to and they're like, I just don't know how. And, there is an art, I think, to editing a podcast, but I also think it's a skill that can be learned. Like, I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I used to edit all my own stuff. And like, if I would, like, I'm sure I would edit differently now, you know what I mean? But you have to like learn and keep trying to like better that skill. Like if you really want to learn something in life, I feel like you will, and then if not, then there's people to do it for you.
Yeah. It's interesting because the technical aspects of editing. There's also like understanding flow of communication, understanding like which points you want to highlight, what things are maybe like deterring from the flow of the conversation. Like there's so much there in terms of what you keep and what you leave out, or how long a podcast episode is, etc. And some of the episodes are just fine the way they are, but I have had many moments where I've had to question like sometimes like the ethics of leaving certain things in, like if people had like very big moments or emotional moments, or like how much of this is genuine and beautiful and you want to leave it in, and how much of this is something that the interviewee will regret immediately.
Yeah oh, that is so true. That's such a good point. What were you gonna say? I feel like you had a thought.
For somebody like us that's podcasting or that wants to get started, how would you tell them to get through a bad day?
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good question.
A really good question.
I like parks, taking walks.
Yeah.
I think, go ahead.
I was going to say like getting inspired. There's not enough to say about that. Like there's a reason why people go into podcasting, right? A lot of times it's because you have something to say or a topic is really important. Museum or a gallery opening or something gets you pumped again and gets you reignited again and gives you that kind of spirit to come back to it even when it's exhausting or you keep messing up the same track,
Right.
Exactly. That's so true. I think too, when you think about like how to get through like your bad day, like if you really think about it, you've gotten through every single bad day that you've ever had. If you really think about it, right? And I think we're meant to feel all of those different emotions all the time because that's the human experience, right? Like we're meant to have that, and we're meant to experience and feel that. It's about what you do with it and how you take that and allow yourself to like transform through it. And sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes a day, sometimes it takes a year, and like that's okay. Like there's no timeline on that. But I think if you're having a bad day, like one of the things I always go back to, like with my clients in my courses, like whatever, even my life, like my own self, like why are you doing this to begin with? And it starts to take some of like the drama that we create in our own heads about specific things. It starts to take the drama out of the scenario, and it allows you to take more control over it, right? Because sometimes when we let things spiral, I don't know about you, but I know for myself, like if I let things spiral in my head, I'm like, oh my God, okay, time to bring it back. Like this is not necessarily true right now, and it is what it is, and we move through. I don't like to say move on. I really feel like we move through, because you don't really leave things in the past. Like they become part of your experience and you get to continue on. Hi.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I had a show that ended I mean, it was such an amazing show. So we were late and I couldn't share that I was going to be late. So
Okay.
so glad to see you guys and that you're still here.
Yes.
Thank you for joining.
Yes. So finish what you're saying. I don't want to interrupt as you guys were talking.
No, I was done.
And can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, what you said about moving through things in podcasting, I think is helpful. Like if something is challenging, you're not moving past it or moving on, you're sort of moving through it. I think I can really relate to that in terms of any kind of challenges that I've had in the space. I think there's also an element of like perfectionism that can bog you down sometimes, right? Like you're trying to get it just right, trying to edit it exactly right, or trying to make sure that your intro sounds appropriate. And all of this, if you stay there for too long, it can become really overwhelming. I think it's important to note like that there is a humanity to this platform that people appreciate, right? There is an honesty that people appreciate to some of these. Of course, there's professionalism, right? You want to have good quality sound and things like that. But for me, for instance, I live in New York City. If I'm in the middle of a conversation with someone and all of a sudden there's like chaotic ambulances in the background, sometimes I leave a little bit of that in because there isn't a sense of place for the listener, right? And so that not always like creating this like black and white element of what perfection should look like, I think is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yes, I so agree with that. And I think it is, again, really important. As you said, like I have 2 boxers that literally lay on my bed because my husband works from home. I have 3 kids. And I remember when I first started, I would say, okay, guys, I'm going to be recording a podcast. And as we all know, if you have kids or no kids, they sometimes don't think, oh, mom's really actually doing something. And it is, you can't always be perfect. And if you try to be perfect, it's just going to make it worse. You need to be authentic and real. And so if you're trying to have this perfection, the way you're acting, it's going to come across that way. So the better that you're more comfortable, like, okay, oh, my daughter just walked in, honey, 1 second, I'm recording a podcast. It doesn't always need to be cut out, especially if you're doing a live or something like that. So I love that you touched on that.
Yeah. That's so true. And like sometimes it's like, you could cut it out, but then you lose like probably a really cool part of the conversation, And I don't know. I don't really think people care that much. Like, yes, you want to make sure like your audio is good. And, like if you can't hear the person, that's a whole different story. Or if it's like, I've edited episodes before where like someone's worn like headphone and like with the mic or whatever. And like the mic is just like hitting against like a necklace or something. And like, that's really distracting. And sometimes, you do got to re-record because it's like, you can't even hear anything that they're saying. But I mean, if it's just background noise, like it's life, And I think over the last couple of years, people have really sort of gotten okay with the fact that there are so many things going on in the background, it's never perfect unless you're in like a perfect, I don't know, studio. But still, I don't know.
Yeah, I think and I'm seeing like the comments 100%, like it really depends on the genre. It depends on what you're doing, right? What the listener's trying to gain from what you're saying. But I'm saying for like introductions and things like that, where you're really being yourself, if that's an element of your podcast, right? Like in my case, I have an interview podcast. I'm interviewing creative people. In the beginning, I talk a little bit about my immersion and creativity that week. Like, what did I do that inspired me that week? And what happens is like a lot of times I'll say something and I'll feel like maybe I don't sound like I'd want to sound, or I'm trying to re-record, make it more perfect. And there is this element where people, they want to know you as the podcaster because information is everywhere. Like you can go right now, Wikipedia something, get that information. You can YouTube something, get that information. What you're providing is like that information through the funnel of who you are and the way your mind is interpreting this information. And so the more authentic and genuine you are, sometimes the better that people can receive this information. And so it's okay if it's not like exactly right, you know.
And you know, you bring in the point about the microphone that's here, because I do a live show on Fireside. That's the thing I just jumped in. I do an NFL segment, and my co-host, who's not a podcaster, she sometimes will literally be like doing this, and I'm like, oh, Cynthia, and I'll just say it in the live podcast. I'm like, you got to get your hair away. You know, I just got this amazing microphone at Podfest, but I don't think you were there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can't. Oh, well, next we'll have to definitely connect. Yesterday, I actually spoke this year, and we did a live podcast for we recorded live. It wasn't a fireside thing.
Cool.
But I'll definitely, yeah. Oh my God, I can't believe we'll have to connect.
What did you talk about? Because I spoke also.
Oh, you did? Oh my God, I love that. So I spoke about the power of storytelling through podcasting with social platforms.
Yep, I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. What did you speak on?
How to launch a podcast.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So it's perfect. But so I got the Shure MV. I don't even know because I'm so not technical.
Yes, that's a good microphone.
Yeah, but I don't think it's hooking up here because I can hear you guys. I can't hear you because I literally just got off the Fireside and I could hear it in my ears, and now I can't hear it. So I'm thinking you guys are just hearing me from the regular iPhone because it doesn't sound anything special, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So it's not. And usually I'll have the dongles on if I don't, because that I think it gives you just the same. Like you can sometimes get really good quality there. And I don't remember now what I was saying. Oh, the quality of the voice. So like the knocking of the thing, that drives me insane. But I will have sometimes a guest that they're really passionate about what they're talking about, and I don't want to interrupt them, you know, especially on my live shows. I don't want to say like, hey, ooh, you know, you're tapping there. And so sometimes it's like, all right, you got a deal.
Yeah. I'm really interested in hearing more about live shows because this is something that I know a lot of podcasts are doing. I was into a show like that.
Is it my feed or am
No.
I?
You again.
Oh yeah, did y'all hear
I
me?
think your Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Is it me?
There we go.
Can you hear me?
No,
I think you were saying about the live shows.
Yeah, I'm
We
curious.
can kind of
Like, tell me a little about the live shows.
So I've been doing live shows now for over a year on Fireside, which is Mark Cuban, Fallon Fatim's app. And I absolutely am obsessed. I love it. I can share more even on the outside. But it basically can get streamed to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And so it will be live. So people can actually be in the auditorium. So it's almost like you're doing like a small show. I can have people in the auditorium. So today, for example, I have a segment called YNS Live because my podcast is Your Next Stop. So it's YNS Live with NFL Thread. NFL Thread is this organization that Cynthia Zordich, who her husband was in the league for 12 years, she started, and it basically keeps the women together, you know, so it's like a LinkedIn for the women of the NFL, so the spouses or the wives. And then we just did a new segment, so we have 2 shows, but that one's called Pivot. And today we had her son on, who was also in the league but got injured his first play of his first game.
Oh, wow.
His father was in the league for 12 years and he got injured. And so we talked about pivoting out of the league. Like, what does that do? Because I'm very fascinated, and I don't think any of us really deeply think of other people when there's, you know, pivoting in our lives, right? Whether it's death, whether it's we lost a job. I don't think people give it enough where they say, you know what, let me think about this. And so especially for a professional athlete, when their time is up, whether it's the league telling them their time is up, you know, or it's they got an injury, I'm fascinated with the spouse, the person that's behind the scenes, that's holding it all together. What does that do, especially if you have children, if you're, drafted and you have to pick up and leave? What does that do to the spouse, the woman, that has aspirations, that wants to, have their own business, but sometimes you can't have a brick and mortar because you don't know where you're going to be. So what does that do? And so we really dive in deep, and it's crazy. Cynthia, I actually babysat the Zordiches when they lived in Philly. So I saw Cynthia basically pivoting because she had just moved to her third place. And I didn't realize as a 16, 17-year-old girl that she was going through a hard time because she was losing herself, because she was a photographer and had pretty good companies, and always had to pick up and start over again. And what does that does when you have young kids? And so she had just started taking pictures, really as like, okay, I just need to continue to take pictures because that's what I, need to do passionate wise. And then Philadelphia Eagles picked it up and were like, can you actually do some stuff for us? You're really talented. So I ended up babysitting because my mom was the kindergarten teacher in the town. And that's where we connected. And then years and years later, we always stayed in, some sort of connection. But years and years later, when I started my podcast, Your Next Stop, she was one of the first people that came to mind that I wanted to interview about people following a passion, turning into a business. And then I started doing a live show on Fireside called YNS Live. And I said to her, after we did this interview, I said, I need to do more. We need to give more voices to professional athletes' wives. And before the Super Bowl, they basically have two really big events that people don't know. So her slogan is, there's a lot for a girl to do at the Super Bowl. She does a networking luncheon. And then there's also through the charity, the 501(c)(3) Off the Field Wives Association, there is they do a fashion show for 21 years and they raise millions of dollars. And they've been doing this for 21 years, but no one knows about it unless you're in the league or unless you have someone that knows someone in the league. And so I wanted to give a voice to that. So this past year, I was fortunate enough to broadcast live, and I did that through Fireside. We had this whole amazing setup, and I was able to interview all the people at the networking luncheon, like, why are you here? What are you doing? And then on the red carpet, when people were coming in for the fashion show, I got to interview tons of people, and it's just a really cool, amazing environment because everyone that goes know that they're supporting the spouses. They know they're supporting the wives. So even the players are like, nope, it's not about me today, especially if they're not in the, playing Super Bowl, they're already out. So that's where I love it. And so I love the live aspect because people can be in there, they can clap, they can applaud. You can have people ask questions. I typically, for those ones, I don't have people asking questions because, you just never know what people are going to say and who they like and, what they're going to do. Yeah. So that's a little bit about that.
Cool.
For the Fireside app, is it like a membership or is it like free, or you got to pay like monthly or yearly?
Nope, it's free. And you request to have a creator thing. I can send you guys a link, but you can also then request I can send you a VIP link so you can kind of just go right in, or you can go through where if you go to Fireside, it just asks you some questions and they basically, just see what you're about sort of thing. And then, and then you request to be a creator, and they do go through a process of it. But you get to meet the team. I mean, it's really cool because they have people that, really work with you about it's all about creators. They want creators to be able to make money. They want podcasters to be able to make money and have a platform where they can really do some stuff. So it's still in beta. So there's still so much growing for them to do, which is really, really fun. It's a great. I cannot talk about it enough. I love the app. And I do my pre-recorded show as well. So I have a very different format. My pre-recorded show is usually 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And my live shows are typically an hour, but today went an hour and a half, which was long, but I didn't want to cut the story.
Of course, right? And people will ask all the time too, like, well, how long do you think my podcast should be? Like, how long should I keep the conversation? I don't think that there's a time on the conversation. I do think every conversation does have like a natural end to it. And I think that it's important to like recognize when that end comes. But if you're at an hour and a half and it's engaging and people are loving it, you're not just like, well, it's been an hour and a half time. You know what I mean? Like, no,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And, I have to say with my pre-recorded show, when I first started, it really was speaking to moms and women in my same place. So I really did like 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes,
Yeah.
because it was like the busy mom that's like jumping in the car before kids come in the car, or, you know, they're doing laundry or doing something at home. And so or they're, you know, busy, even for a male, like, you know, the busy person that doesn't have the 2 hours to listen to. I don't know how many times, you know, you guys have done this, but I'll listen to a podcast and I won't finish it. And then I'm like, you know, and then I forget about it. And then I forget, oh, wait, I wanted to re-listen to that. Or I take a picture. So I do go back, and then I never go through the picture and never go back. So I wanted to do, you know, I wanted to kind of have a twofold. So I really attracted a couple different audiences. So it's really, you know, the ones that, you know, we can dive deeper into the story. And that's where my live show is. It's, you know, just a little bit of a deeper dive than the pre-recorded.
Yeah.
So it works really well.
And there's so many times where I'm in the middle of a conversation, middle of an interview, and I'm thinking like, wow, like, I wonder if this is going to translate the way that I'm experiencing it and feeling it in this moment we're creating with really important content. That translates to when somebody else is like listening later, when they're in the middle of their commute or doing something else. Like there is an element live where everybody's there kind of holding this space that I think is really something interesting to think about.
Right.
Yes, very, very good point.
That's so true.
I gotta use it.
So sorry that I was late. And I
Oh.
couldn't type and say, hey, Rome, I'm gonna be late.
It's okay. We should do this again sometime.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. Thank you guys for, you know, creating this space and for putting this together, Rome, because I know how hard it is to coordinate with lots of different people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
I'll keep in contact.
Yeah. Nice to meet you all.
Yes.
Nice to meet you
meeting
too.
everyone.
Thank you so
guys
much.
so much. Yes,
Bye,
let's
everyone.
connect also on, you know, the back channels.
Yes.
Bye. Thanks, Rome.
All right. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Yes, thank you so much.